It was sitting in a container on a laboratory bench in Jerusalem. Not an octopus, just the arm. The octopus had been removed from the tank 43 minutes earlier. The arm had been cleanly separated. It was sitting in oxygenated salt water under observation lights while two researchers took notes. Then one of them placed a piece of crab at the edge of the container, and the arm moved toward it. Not a twitch, not a dying spasm. It extended, it reached, it gripped the crab with coordinated sucker pressure, the exact same grip sequence it would have used if it were attached to a living animal. And then it began moving in the direction of where the octopus's mouth used to be. There was no mouth. There was no octopus. There was no brain sending any signal to anything. The arm did not care. It kept going for 2 hours. When the researchers published their findings, they spent 3 paragraphs carefully explaining what the arm was not doing. They avoided certain words. They hedged every conclusion, because what they had actually observed did not fit inside any definition of reflex, instinct, or automated response that neuroscience had at the time. What they saw was an arm, completely alone, making decisions. And if that is possible, if a piece of an animal can think without a brain, then everything we believe about what intelligence is, where it lives, and what it requires to exist, is wrong. Not incomplete, not slightly off, wrong. Welcome to Octopus Mind. Subscribe right now before you keep watching, because what I'm going to show you in the next 17 minutes does not just change how you think about octopuses, it changes how you think about your own mind. And the last thing we cover, a finding published in 2023 that the researchers sat on for 2 years before they trusted it enough to release, is the strangest thing I have come across in 3 years of covering animal cognition. Do not skip to the end. The setup matters. Let's go. Number 1. The architecture that should not exist. Start with a number, 500 million. That is how many neurons an octopus has. For context, a honeybee has 1 million, a mouse has 71 million, a dog has roughly 530 million. The octopus sits in the same cognitive weight class as a dog, packed into an animal with no bones, no fixed shape, and a body plan that evolution arrived at completely independently from every vertebrate that has ever lived. But the number is not the interesting part. The interesting part is where those neurons live. In your body, the answer is simple. Your brain is in your skull. Your spinal cord runs down your back. Your nervous system is a hierarchy. One central processor, billions of subordinate nodes, everything reporting upward to the same command center. Every vertebrate on Earth works this way. Every one. Fish, frogs, lizards, birds, mammals. The architecture is the same. Centralized, top-down, one boss. An octopus has 500 million neurons. 50 million of them are in the brain. The other 450 million, 90% of the entire nervous system, live in the arms. Each arm has its own ganglion, its own dedicated processing cluster, its own ability to receive sensory data, evaluate it, and generate a motor response without sending a single signal to the central brain. This is not an emergency backup. This is not a fail-safe. This is the primary operating system. The arms are not tools the brain uses. The arms are thinkers that cooperate with a brain. When an octopus reaches into a dark rock crevice to search for prey, the brain does not run that operation. It issues one high-level command, something like, search that area, and then it waits. The arm goes in. The arm feels the texture of the rock face, The arm identifies the shape of a hidden crab by touch alone, distinguishing it from stone and shell and debris in complete darkness. The arm adjusts its grip angle, navigates around an obstacle, secures the prey, and withdraws. The brain finds out what the arm discovered at roughly the same moment you would if you were watching from outside the tank. The octopus and its own arm are discovering things at the same time. Read that sentence again, because it does not sound like it should be true about a single animal. It sounds like it should describe two separate creatures that happen to be physically connected. In a meaningful sense, it does. Number 2. What happens when the arm is completely alone? The Hebrew University experiment in 2001 was not the first time researchers had observed detached octopus arms showing coordinated behavior. It was the first time anyone had designed a controlled study around it and published the results in enough detail to be taken seriously. The setup was straightforward. Arms were removed under controlled conditions, placed in oxygenated seawater, introduced to a series of stimuli over the following hours. Every response was filmed and analyzed. Food placed near the arm, coordinated reaching and gripping sequence, identical to the behavior of an attached arm on a living animal. Mild threat stimulus applied to the skin, withdrawal and contraction, defensive posture. The arm moved away from the threat and reduced its profile, the same response it would display if a predator had touched it while it was still part of an octopus. Food successfully gripped. The arm moved in the direction of where the octopus's mouth would have been, not randomly, not in the direction of the stimulus, specifically toward the anatomically correct position of a mouth that no longer existed on a body that was no longer there. This continued for up to 2 hours post-separation. The researchers wrote in their conclusion that the behavior could not be accounted for by simple reflex arcs. They noted that the responses were contextually appropriate. Different stimuli produced functionally different responses, which is not what reflexes do. Reflexes are fixed. Stimulus A always produces response B. What they were observing was evaluation followed by selection of an appropriate response. They did not call it thinking, but they also could not call it anything else with a straight face. Number 3. The problem that nobody wants to say out loud. Here is the question that the arm experiment forces into the room, and that almost no paper about octopus neuroscience will state directly. If the arm can sense, evaluate, choose a response, and execute goal-directed behavior for 2 hours without a brain, what is the brain actually for? The answer that research has converged on over the last 20 years is this: the brain handles what the arms cannot manage individually. Long-term memory, cross-arm coordination, navigation, social behavior, the recognition of individual humans. The decision to move the whole body in a given direction. Personality, the consistent individual behavioral patterns that differ from one octopus to another, the way they differ from one person to another. The arms handle execution, the brain handles strategy. But here is what that model actually implies, stated plainly. The octopus is not one intelligence controlling 8 tools. It is 9 intelligences sharing one body. 8 local processors handling the physical interaction with the world in real time, and 1 central processor setting direction, integrating information, and maintaining continuity of identity across all of them. No vertebrate works this way. No other cephalopod has taken this architecture this far. The octopus evolved this system independently, from scratch, on a separate branch of the tree of life that split from our own ancestors over 500 million years ago. It is the only animal we know of that solved the problem of complex behavior by distributing the solution across 9 separate thinking systems instead of concentrating it in one. And it has been working for 500 million years. Whatever intelligence is, whatever the minimum requirements are for a system to evaluate information and choose a response, the octopus arm meets them without a brain. That is not a metaphor, that is what the data shows. Number 4. The moment the brain waits for its own arm. One of the most consistently surprising findings in octopus behavioral research, surprising because it keeps appearing in studies that weren't designed to look for it, is this. Octopuses are regularly observed reacting to information from their own arms as if they are receiving it for the first time. Researchers studying hunting sequences noticed specific moments where the central body, the head, the eyes, the posture, would reorient in response to something an arm had found, rather than directing the arm towards something the eyes had already seen. The arm found the prey first. The arm's local sensors detected it. The arm sent a signal to the central brain. And the central brain updated its behavior based on that report. In every model of cognition we have built around vertebrate brains, this is backwards. The brain sees, the brain decides, the body acts. The body does not discover things and report them to a brain that was waiting to find out. In the octopus, the body discovers, the brain learns. The arm reaches into a crevice the octopus cannot see into. The brain cannot see into it either. The arm is operating in complete informational darkness from the brain's perspective. The arm finds something. Prey, predator, nothing. And the brain finds out what it was at the same moment the arm does. You and your hand are one system with one information source. The octopus and its arms are 9 systems running 9 parallel information streams with a central coordinator that is genuinely receiving reports rather than always issuing commands. Number 5. What the arms do when no one is asking them to do anything. In 2023, a team at the Marine Biological Laboratory in Woods Hole, Massachusetts, published a paper that had been in preparation for 2 years. Not because the results were complex, because the researchers did not trust them. They were recording neural activity in octopus arms at rest. Living animals, inactive, lying still on the tank floor, not feeding, not threatened, not being stimulated in any way, just resting. The arms were generating spontaneous neural firing sequences, organized ones. Coordinated patterns of activation traveling down the arm in waves. The same patterns recorded during active hunting, during prey manipulation, during the complex gripping sequences used to open shells and navigate crevices. Occurring during rest, spontaneously, with no corresponding activity detected in the central brain. The arms were running movement programs while the octopus was doing nothing. The researchers' published interpretation was hedged and careful. Possible motor consolidation, they wrote. A local process analogous to the replay activity seen in vertebrate motor cortex during sleep, where movement sequences are reinforced through low-level repetition. What they did not write, but what the data technically supports, the arms were practicing, on their own, without instruction, without the brain's involvement or apparent awareness. In the silence of a tank floor, in the absence of any task or stimulus, 9 separate processing systems, 8 arms and 1 brain, and 8 of them were quietly running through their sequences while the 9th rested. This is what a mind that is distributed across 9 locations looks like when it is not doing anything in particular. We do not have a word for what that is. We have words for reflex. We have words for instinct. We have words for learning, memory, planning, and consciousness. We do not have a word for what happens when a piece of an animal practices a skill alone, in the dark, 2 hours after the animal it belonged to has been taken away. We don't have that word because we built our entire vocabulary of mind around creatures like us. Creatures where everything that matters is in one place, behind one set of eyes, making one set of decisions. The octopus arm is not behind any eyes. It is not making decisions in any way we can currently map onto our models. And it is out there, right now, in a laboratory tank or on a dark ocean floor, reaching for something, gripping it, moving toward a location it learned from a body it may no longer be connected to. 9 minds, 1 body, and somewhere in the space between them, a form of intelligence that has been operating on this planet for 500 million years without ever needing us to understand it. Subscribe, I'll see you in the next one. Tell me in the comments, after everything in this video, do you still think intelligence lives in the brain?